Hello, just George from Ireland here. Thank you for coming back to the channel again. Well, perhaps the first scandal of this Labour government. They've been in office for 51 days, if my computation serves me right. So there's this cronyism that Labour is so often guilty of. We're seeing yet again. Lord Wahid Ali, who was appointed to the House of Peers under Tony Blair, he donated hundreds of thousands of pounds to the Labour Party, and he helped to organize a garden party in Downing Street to reward other people who'd coughed up for Labour. Um, Anyway, so now Labour admitted that it gave out a pass to him, even though he doesn't hold any role in government at all, which is unprecedented. But he no longer has it, according to Pat McFadden. He's the Chancellor for the Duchy of Lancaster. Now he doesn't has no special responsibility for Lancaster, Mr. McFadden. I think they just use that as a title they give to someone who's got other responsibilities in government. I can't remember what he actually does. Likewise, Chancellor of the Duchy of Cornwall is because the Duke of Lancaster is the monarch. The Duke of Cornwall is the monarch, but often they use that. They transfer it to a junior member of the family. It's actually to provide an income, the Duchy of Cornwall, for the Prince of Wales, currently Prince William. But anyway, back to the subject. So they were going there for partisan meetings about the Labour Party. So Pat McFadden was saying that Lord Ali, a television executive, that he had no role in government, but yes, he did have a role in the Labour Party, almost as though there's no connection whatsoever between government and the governing party. This is preposterous, a false distinction, a distinction without a difference. So he's given over £500,000 to Labour and to its individual candidates over the past 20 years. And he's also done things like provided free accommodation and suits to Sir Keir Starmer and others. So he was the main fundraiser for Labour. This general election just gone, he held the role of Labour's fundraiser since 2022, and he also hosted dinners at his luxury flat in Mayfair, and that's where the Labour front bench could mingle with affluent people who were going to pony up for Labour. Um, so what else? So there are other arguments over the abuse of power for the purposes of rewarding Labour cronies. So it's the deeply unpleasant and unedifying culture of cronyism that besmirched Labour in the Brown Blair years. So we can already smell the stench of putrefaction. So moral principles, ethical principles, the civil service code rotting away. Ian Caulfield, he gave £20,000 to Labour over several years, some of it to Rachel Reeves, obviously not for her to be lining her purse, but to be spending on political activities. And then he was given a role as the Treasury's Director of Investment. So he's going to be an unpaid advisor rather than actually a salaried civil servant. So the Conservative and Unionist Party said that the independent ethical advisor must look into this because surely there's a conflict of interest here. Now, several others who are linked to Labour or Labour supporting think tanks, can't remember which ones, they have been given very prominent vote roles in the civil service, like Sue Gray, a former civil servant who Boris Johnson had to investigate the lockdown party's allegations, and they have someone marking their own homework, a Labour hack as well. So you see how blatantly politicised the civil service is. Now, Conservatives have long argued the idea that there's an apolitical service is a leftist myth. Now, civil servants, they're almost all graduates. They live in London or other major cities. They're all under 67, and they're public sector employees. All these factors would mean about 90% of them are anti-Conservative voters. And most of those Labour voters, maybe 60% Labour voters. Now, you could be a Labour voter and still objective and do your duties to the best of your ability in an even-handed way. Try your uttermost to implement a policy, even if you vehemently disagree with it. But it's unlikely that so many of them will achieve that level of detachment. So Conservatives often profess themselves to be frustrated by go-slows, by willful obstruction on behalf of the civil service, and indeed some of the civil service unions going to court over the Rwanda policy. But in fairness to them, there was a risk that we're breaching international law. They wanted to know they wouldn't be had up before some court for implementing this policy. So I know that when Labour's in office, they say, oh, these civil servants, they are closet conservatives. Maybe not a capital C in the sense of voting for the Tory party, but traditionalists. They don't like too much change. They like continuity, and they view Labour as rather wild. The rot set in under Maggie Thatcher. so many things, bringing in special advisors, SPADs, they're known. There should be no special advisors whatsoever. They are political appointees. They're not career civil servants who join after school or university and are promoted on the basis of merit and accomplishment. No, 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 no. They're appointed on a nakedly partisan purpose to advance the agenda of the governing party, which is all either Labour or Conservative, but they're paid for out of taxpayer funds, and the number tripled under Tony Blair. Any perversion of these principles of disinterested public service are called modernization. It's not in date, outdate. Integrity and public service are never outdated. Corruption and the politicization of supposedly neutral institutions is never in date, however a la mode it may be. It's just impermissible and ethically unthinkable. So, but sadly, both major parties have misused public funds in order to further their ideologies. And it got even worse under Tony Blair when they were allowed to give orders to career civil servants. And there was Alistair Campbell, his press secretary, verbally abusing journalists. He's a gifted mimic, doing cruel impersonations of them. And okay, my heart bleeds, the street of shame. These reptiles from Fleet Street, they got to develop a tough hide and be able to take it. So yet more unethical behavior from Labour. Why am I not surprised? But so the civil service are happy. They've been rewarded. They're getting pay rises, but with no concomitant increase in productivity. And a lot of them could be just moved out of London. Almost all of them out of London. Why are they be physically present? Which means they wouldn't have to have London waiting on their salaries. And the money, rather than tax from all over the United Kingdom going into London, already the richest city being spent there. There should be almost no civil service in London. Have them, say in Northeast England, economically depressed areas, to bring some money to that area. I would renovate some houses and say, and this is your house, and this is part of your deal. You're going to get this for a peppercorn rent, or you can buy it very cheaply, blah, 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 something like that. They wouldn't be very happy about that. Of course, a lot of people part of a couple and say, even if I could move, my spouse, his or her job can't move so easily. Might say, we're moving you within 5 years and take it or leave it. And if you don't agree, then you're going to lose your job, something like that. But anyway, I think a lot more of this will come out in the wash, how Labour is misusing the civil service, jobs for the boys. So nepotism as usual. I don't think the Conservatives were as bad on that one. Yes, there were some breaches of ethics by them, but just because one party did it, no, it's unacceptable that the other party does it. It's not a case of tu quoque. I'm a right winger, and I'm the first to castigate the Conservative and Unionist Party, which has so often got it wrong and so often rancorously disappointed me. But unsurprisingly, that Pat McFadden shamelessly defends a blatantly unethical policy, a possibly illegal policy. You should just look at the civil service standards of impartiality, of serving the public, of not being partisan about things, of not covering for your political masters. So they so often do and give them a pass, like when Keith Vaz, he misused civil service buildings for private business interests, a complete failure to distinguish between public and private. And often these Labour people are former Marxists who claim that this is a bogus distinction that doesn't exist. It's bourgeois nonsense. Anyway, thank you so much for watching my channel. Make sure you subscribe on Patreon, donate on PayPal, georgecallahan79@gmail.com. You'll see more about the ethical elasticity of Labour and its illogicality, its strained language, its moral gymnastics when it attempts to defend the indefensible. Toodaloo.